Have you ever made a decision that, with the passage of time, you've come to profoundly lament? A choice that, despite initial assurances and well-meaning intentions, turned out to be a stark departure from the life you envisioned. For me, at the venerable age of 82, I've accumulated a wealth of experiences and insights, but there's one particular resolution that casts a long shadow of remorse over my golden years: my move into a residential care facility. At that juncture in my life, it appeared to be the sensible path forward. My family, with their unwavering affection, advocated for it, painting a picture of comprehensive care and unparalleled comfort. I placed my trust in their assurances, genuinely believing that this transition would usher in an era of ease and security. However, the reality that unfolded within those walls was a far cry from the idyllic scene I had envisioned. I am aware that many of you watching today might be contemplating a similar move, either for yourselves or for someone dear to you. Perhaps you perceive it as the most secure option, or maybe you've been led to believe it will simplify life considerably. But before you take that momentous leap, I feel compelled to share 7 crucial insights I desperately wish someone had imparted to me before I made this life-altering decision. Because the stark reality is that life within a nursing home transcends mere convenience. It fundamentally reshapes your existence, and once you've crossed that threshold, retracing your steps isn't as straightforward as you might imagine. In this video, we are going to reveal these 7 hard truths about life in a nursing home. If you're watching this video, comment "reveal" below. Stay with me until the end, because some of these revelations might genuinely astound you. And if you know someone who is currently considering a nursing home, this video could be precisely the guidance they need before making such a significant commitment. Now, let's delve into these crucial lessons. 1. The erosion of autonomy. The most profound shock I encountered upon entering the nursing home wasn't the modest size of my allocated room, the rigid scheduling of mealtimes, or even the multitude of unfamiliar faces that surrounded me. It was the stark and unsettling realization that I had relinquished command over the very fabric of my own existence. Prior to this relocation, I had established my own rhythms and rituals. I decided when my day would commence, when I would partake in nourishment, and how I would occupy my time. I possessed the liberty to stroll outdoors whenever the inclination struck me, to prepare my own sustenance, or simply to repose in tranquil solitude in my cherished armchair, engrossed in a captivating book. However, within the confines of the nursing home, I swiftly came to understand that my time was no longer my own to dictate. Everything operated according to a predetermined timetable that bore no resemblance to my personal preferences. Breakfast was served at a precise hour, irrespective of whether I felt any hunger. Lights were extinguished at a designated time, regardless of my readiness for slumber. Should I desire a simple walk in the fresh air, I would likely require permission and would undoubtedly have to await the availability of an assisting staff member. Even seemingly trivial decisions, such as selecting what to eat or what garments to wear, began to feel like bestowed privileges rather than fundamental personal choices. I vividly recall my initial week within those walls. Awaking in a bed that lacked the comforting familiarity of my own, I sat up, stretched, and instinctively reached for the book I had been engrossed in at my own residence. But as my gaze swept across the unfamiliar surroundings, the stark reality struck me with undeniable force. This was not my abode. My cherished books, my beloved armchair, the small comforts I had painstakingly accumulated over the years, all were absent. In their place were sterile walls, a bed I hadn't selected, and an inescapable sensation that I was no longer the orchestrator of my own life. The most distressing aspect of this realization was the understanding that once you surrender your autonomy, reclaiming it becomes an arduous, almost insurmountable task. You adapt out of necessity. You cease to contest when informed of the day's culinary offerings. You refrain from inquiring about spontaneous walks whenever the mood strikes. You learn to conform to their established system, but in this process of adaptation, a part of your very being begins to fade. If you are contemplating a move to a nursing home, I implore you to ask yourself with unwavering honesty, are you truly prepared to relinquish the small yet significant freedoms that constitute the essence of your individual life? Because once those freedoms are gone, you will yearn for them with an intensity you cannot currently fathom. Comment "my freedom" below if you value your independence. 2. The pain of isolation. One of the most somber truths about transitioning to a nursing home is the gradual and often heartbreaking realization that the vibrant world outside continues its relentless forward march, seemingly oblivious to your absence. When I first arrived, my family, in their boundless love and concern, offered repeated assurances of frequent visits. I placed my faith in their words, and in the initial period, they held true. My daughter would grace my presence once a week, and my grandchildren would enliven my weekends with their youthful energy. For a fleeting period, it felt as though I still maintained a tangible connection to my former existence. However, as the seasons turned and months drifted by, the frequency of those cherished visits began to dwindle. My daughter, burdened by her own responsibilities, started opting for phone calls over in-person visits. My grandchildren became increasingly occupied with the demands of their academic pursuits and burgeoning careers. Holidays, once occasions of joyous family gatherings, became the most poignant reminders of my isolation. Everyone would promise their presence, but unforeseen circumstances would invariably arise, leading to last-minute cancellations. And so, I would often find myself seated alone in a communal lounge, observing other residents as they too gazed expectantly at the entrance, their silent hope a mirror of my own, wishing that today would be the day someone remembered them. It wasn't that my family's affection had waned. Life simply intervened. When you are no longer a daily presence in their lives, it becomes effortless for others to assume you are well, that you are adjusting seamlessly, that you no longer require the same level of attention and connection. But the harsh reality is that the longer you reside within the confines of a nursing home, the easier it becomes for those outside to overlook just how profoundly you still need them. I recall one particular evening, sitting in the solitude of my room, the telephone clutched in my hand. I hesitated, debating whether to call my son. I was reluctant to impose, to remind him of my existence, of my quiet anticipation for a visit that might never materialize. Ultimately, I replaced the receiver, and in that moment, the stark truth settled upon me. This was my life now, a monotonous cycle of watching the days recede, hoping that someone would remember to include me in their thoughts, their plans. If you are contemplating a move to a nursing home, I urge you to confront this question with unwavering courage. Are you truly prepared for the potential for profound loneliness? Because regardless of the depth of your family's love, once you are out of their immediate sight, it is alarmingly easy for you to become out of their conscious thought. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I wholeheartedly recommend you do so and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now, let's proceed to the next crucial regret. 3. The diminishment of purpose. When I made the transition to the nursing home, my initial perception was that I was merely changing my physical address. I failed to comprehend that I was also fundamentally altering the very essence of why I lived. In my own home, I had a multitude of responsibilities, established routines, cherished hobbies, and an inherent motivation to embrace each new day. Even the seemingly insignificant tasks tending to my beloved plants, preparing my morning coffee, tidying my personal space imbued my life with a profound sense of purpose. However, within the structured environment of the nursing home, those daily rituals vanished. Meals were prepared and served to me, cleaning was diligently performed by someone else, and the plants that once brought life to my living room were no longer my responsibility. Initially, I attempted to convince myself that it would be a welcome respite, a chance to finally unwind, free from the burden of chores and responsibilities, allowing myself to simply rest. But after a few short weeks, a profound sense of emptiness began to pervade my days. They stretched endlessly, devoid of meaningful activity, filled only with the monotonous passage of time. I observed this same phenomenon in other residents, individuals who had once possessed vibrant energy and a zest for life, now spent their days listlessly sitting, staring vacantly, merely waiting for time to elapse. There was a gentleman named Arthur, 84 years of age, who had dedicated his entire life to the craft of carpentry. In his own home, he was perpetually engaged in fixing things, constructing small projects in his cherished garage. But within the nursing home, there were no tools, no projects, nothing for his skilled hands to create. I witnessed his gradual withdrawal, his once strong and capable hands now resting idly in his lap. "I feel useless," he confided in me one day, and I understood his sentiment with absolute clarity. When you are deprived of something to nurture, something to strive towards, life begins to lose its inherent meaning. The mind, lacking stimulation, begins to slow, the body follows suit. and soon you start to perceive yourself as merely another anonymous resident in a place where time continues its relentless march. Yet nothing of true significance ever seems to change. If you are considering a nursing home, I implore you to contemplate deeply what truly gives your life meaning. Because once you make that move, rediscovering that sense of purpose is far more challenging than simply filling your time. It necessitates a conscious and persistent battle to hold on to the very essence of what makes you feel truly alive. Comment "My purpose" below if having a sense of meaning in life is important to you. I believe you're enjoying this video. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe, like, and share this video. Comment "Wonderful" if you're enjoying this video. 4. The accelerated decline of well-being. Prior to my relocation to the nursing home, I was, by and large, in good health for my age. While I wasn't engaging in strenuous athletic activities, I was still capable of managing my personal affairs, enjoying leisurely walks, and preparing my own meals. I had established a set of simple routines that kept me physically active: the weekly grocery shopping trips, my gentle stretching exercises each morning. Even just the act of moving around my own house helped to maintain the strength in my legs. But once I settled into the nursing home environment, everything began to shift. Initially, it seemed as though I was simply embracing a more relaxed pace of life. Meals were conveniently brought to me, eliminating the need to stand in the kitchen to cook. If I required anything, a simple press of a button would summon assistance. However, what I failed to anticipate was the insidious effect of this reduced physical activity. The less I exerted myself, the weaker I became. I ceased moving as frequently, and before long, my legs felt increasingly stiff. I spent more time seated than I ever had before, and before I fully grasped the situation, the simple act of rising from a chair began to feel like an arduous task. The muscles I had diligently maintained for years were diminishing at an alarming and unexpected rate. And this wasn't an isolated experience. I witnessed the same decline in other residents. Individuals who had arrived on their own 2 feet were soon reliant on wheelchairs. People who had once been fiercely independent now required assistance with tasks they had previously managed effortlessly. It seemed that the more assistance we were provided, the more dependent we became. I recall my neighbor, Elena, an 81-year-old woman who exuded vitality upon her arrival. She made it a point to take daily walks around the facility, adamantly declaring that she wouldn't allow a mere number to dictate her activity level. But after a few short months, I noticed her walks became less frequent. Then she began using a walker, and eventually a wheelchair. One day, she looked at me, a hint of bewilderment in her eyes, and said, "I don't know when it happened, but I feel like I've aged 10 years in just a few months." And that's precisely how it felt. When you cease to engage your body, you inevitably begin to lose its capabilities. In a nursing home setting, where the environment is meticulously designed to simplify daily tasks, it's easy to overlook the fundamental truth that movement isn't merely about convenience. It's about sustaining life. Had I possessed a clearer understanding of how swiftly my physical strength would diminish, I would have fought with greater determination to remain active, to push myself even on days when I felt apathetic. If you are considering a nursing home, ask yourself honestly whether you will possess the intrinsic motivation to maintain your physical strength when your surroundings are engineered to minimize exertion. Because once you allow yourself to slow down, regaining that momentum is far more challenging than you might imagine. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment "staying active" below to let me know you're engaged. 5. The erosion of personal space and respect. One aspect I hadn't fully contemplated before moving into the nursing home was the significant degree to which my personal privacy would be compromised. In my own home, I had the sanctuary of my own space. I could close my bedroom door, retreat into silence whenever I desired, and conduct my personal affairs on my own terms. But within the confines of a nursing home, privacy becomes a precious commodity, one that you don't always have the privilege of retaining. From the moment I arrived, I felt an almost constant sense of being observed. Staff members routinely entered and exited my room. Scheduled room checks were a regular occurrence, and the communal living spaces offered little opportunity for true solitude. Even fundamental activities like getting dressed or using the restroom often necessitated the assistance of another person. I understood that the staff were simply performing their duties, but it's nonetheless difficult to reconcile the need for help with tasks you've managed independently for the entirety of your adult life. I remember during my initial week, I struggled with the notion that I had to request permission for actions I once took for granted. Wanting to take a shower often meant waiting until a staff member was available to assist. Needing to use the restroom sometimes meant pressing the call button and enduring a wait longer than was comfortable. Even meal choices were limited. If the day's menu didn't appeal to you, well, that was simply the way it was. Then there was the matter of roommates. Not every resident is afforded the luxury of a private room, and sharing a personal space with someone you didn't choose can be a source of considerable frustration. I was fortunate to have a kind and considerate roommate, but I heard accounts from others who were not so lucky. Some had roommates who were disruptive, untidy, or even suffered from cognitive impairments that made restful sleep nearly impossible. And regardless of how diligently you attempt to personalize your allocated space to resemble a home, it never truly feels like your own. Dignity is a profound and essential aspect of the human experience, and I hadn't fully grasped the extent to which I would have to relinquish mine until I was already living within those walls. When individuals knock on your door but don't always wait for a response before entering, when you are addressed as a patient rather than as an individual, when your daily routines are dictated by a schedule you had no hand in creating, these seemingly small indignities accumulate and erode your sense of self. You begin to feel less like the unique individual you are and more like just another name on a roster. If you are considering a nursing home, ask yourself if you are prepared to surrender the privacy and control you have enjoyed throughout your life. Because once it's gone, it is incredibly difficult to reclaim. Comment "My dignity" below if you believe in the importance of personal respect. 6. The illusion of easy departure. When I first transitioned to the nursing home, I harbored the notion that it was a temporary arrangement. I thought I would give it a trial period, assess how things progressed, and if it didn't suit me, I could simply return to my own home. However, what I failed to comprehend was the formidable challenge of extricating myself once I was ensconced within the system. Initially, the logic seemed straightforward. If I disliked it, I would simply go back home. But my home wasn't quite the same anymore. It sat vacant, and maintaining it from a distance proved to be a significant undertaking. My children, with their characteristic pragmatism, had already begun making adjustments, selling possessions they deemed I no longer required, and even contemplating renting out the property. When I broached the subject of returning, they expressed hesitation. "Are you sure you can manage on your own, Mom, Dad?" they would ask, their voices laced with concern. "Wouldn't it be safer for you to stay where you are? We just want what's best for you." And then there was the undeniable reality of my own physical decline. After months of living in an environment where I wasn't required to cook, clean, or even walk extensively, I wasn't as strong as I once was. The independence I had previously taken for granted had begun to slip away, making the prospect of moving back home far more daunting than I had ever anticipated. I no longer possessed the same level of confidence in my ability to live alone, and that underlying fear kept me tethered to the nursing home. I encountered other residents who shared similar experiences. They had initially viewed the nursing home as a temporary solution, only to discover that leaving wasn't as simple as they had imagined. The longer one resides within those walls, the more challenging it becomes to readjust to life outside. Some individuals even lost the option entirely once their homes were sold or their savings were depleted by the considerable cost of care. There was simply no turning back. This is the aspect that often goes unmentioned. Moving in may feel like a reversible decision, but for the majority of individuals, it is not. The nursing home gradually becomes their entire world, and before they realize it, the life they once knew begins to feel like a distant, fading memory. If you are considering a nursing home, ask yourself if you are prepared for the very real possibility that once you make that move, leaving might not be as straightforward as you currently believe. Because once you settle in, the obstacles to departure, whether they are financial, physical, or emotional, can prove far more formidable than you initially expect. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment "No return" below to acknowledge this crucial point. 7. The emotional toll and lack of individualized attention. Beyond the tangible losses of independence and privacy, there's a less visible but equally significant regret: the profound emotional toll of living in a nursing home and the often unavoidable lack of truly personalized attention. While the staff are generally well-meaning and dedicated, they are often stretched thin, responsible for the care of numerous residents with diverse and complex needs. This reality can lead to a feeling of being just one among many, rather than a unique individual with specific preferences, emotional needs, and a personal history. The structured environment, while intended to provide order and care, can sometimes feel impersonal and even isolating on an emotional level. The routines are geared towards efficiency and the general well-being of all residents, which can inadvertently overlook the individual nuances that make each person feel valued and understood. Simple things like having a conversation at your own pace, receiving emotional support tailored to your specific anxieties or concerns, or even just having someone truly listen without being rushed, can become rare occurrences. I remember feeling a deep sense of sadness and frustration when my requests for small comforts or changes to my routine were often met with delays or simply overlooked due to the sheer volume of tasks the staff had to manage. It wasn't a reflection of their lack of care, but rather a consequence of the system itself. This can lead to feelings of insignificance, as if your individual needs and preferences are secondary to the smooth operation of the facility. The emotional landscape of a nursing home can be challenging, with feelings of loneliness, boredom, and a sense of detachment from one's former life often prevailing. While some facilities offer social activities, they may not always resonate with every resident's interests or provide the genuine connection and emotional fulfillment that comes from personal relationships and shared experiences outside the facility. Comment personal care if you believe that individualized attention is crucial in elder care. Looking back on my decision, I don't lament the process of growing older. That is an inevitable part of life's journey. However, I do deeply regret believing that a nursing home was my only viable option for my later years. I entered expecting comfort, safety, and an enhanced quality of life. What I encountered instead was a world that gradually stripped away my independence, my privacy, my sense of purpose, and even my sense of self. Does this imply that all nursing homes are inherently negative environments? Not necessarily. For some individuals with significant medical needs, the level of care provided by these facilities is genuinely essential. But before you make that profound decision, I urge you to carefully consider what you might be relinquishing. Because once you move in, life will irrevocably change. If I had the opportunity to revisit that decision, I would have fought more vigorously to remain in my own home, explored a wider range of options for in-home support, and ensured that a nursing home was truly the most appropriate and necessary choice before making such a permanent transition. And if you are currently grappling with this weighty decision, I sincerely hope you will take the time for deep introspection and ask yourself, is this truly the best course of action for me? Or is it simply the path that appears most convenient at this moment? Because the life you have cultivated, your routines, your independence, your personal choices is a treasure worth holding on to for as long as humanly possible. Thank you for joining me today on this candid journey of reflection. We would be deeply grateful to hear your thoughts and experiences. Please leave a comment below and share one key takeaway from this video and how you plan to apply it to your own life or the lives of your loved ones. Your insights are invaluable to our community, so please don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments provides us with immense motivation and encouragement to continue creating content that matters. If you found this video insightful and helpful, please remember to subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Give this video a like to show your support, and share it with anyone who might benefit from these hard-earned truths. Before you go, we encourage you to explore other interesting videos on our channel that delve into various aspects of elderly wisdom and navigating the complexities of aging. We look forward to connecting with you in our next video. Thanks for watching.